Now here we go. Now go, go. Here we go. You ain't never ever seen nothing like this. Never have you ever seen something like me.
Hi and welcome to another episode of Walking with Walfinch. And today I'm really excited to introduce Shannon Wilburn. Shannon is the co-founder of Just Between Friends. Don't know why that was a tongue twister.
You got it.
She had a very successful exit in 2022. Built it to 150 units?
150 something.
150 something,
Yeah.
And change.
Yeah, and change, but no one's counting.
And just shy of 50 million in network revenue.
But when I took the exit, we had just hit around 42.
Wonderful.
Yes.
That's so exciting. And now is a professional business coach helping 6 and 7 figure businesses.
Yes.
So,
yep.
But have I missed anything there, Shannon?
No. Probably a lot, but what do you want to know?
And everything in between. So I met Shannon in Nashville, and when we were at the Emerging Franchisor Conference, and you were one of the speakers there, and I sort of made a bright beeline up to you, and
I can't even remember what I was talking about.
I mean, it was FACs actually. And,
yeah. Okay, thank you.
It was super memorable, I know. So I get this a lot, right? And you were just so kind to then, grab a coffee with me and talk about it. I actually went and set up an FAC after that, a franchise advisory council for anyone that doesn't know.
Oh, good.
With yourself and you were on a panel with Joining Franchise, and he's on later on actually on one of the shows. So, so it was just so brilliant. I just then started following your journey, and if you don't follow Shannon on social media, you must, because she is super active, and we've just found out recently in a major twist that she's an identical twin, 100% DNA match.
Thank you, 23andMe.
Right.
Yeah.
So Shannon, where did it all start? Your entrepreneurial career.
Yeah, it's funny because I've been asking myself that question a lot over the last few months. With starting an executive coaching business, it has made me think, like, I used to call myself an accidental entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But when you think back to it, my sister and I had a jewelry making business when we were in high school.
Yeah.
And I hadn't thought about that in years. And so really true business where you actually create an entity and do that started when I was 27. Started the Just Between Friends concept, which is basically, you know what it is.
Yeah.
It's a place for families to buy and sell gently used children's and maternity clothes, toys, and baby equipment, like a pop-up.
Yeah.
And so we did that. I mean, I could tell you the whole long story about why, but it would be 45 minutes, and I don't think that's going to be
How about
good.
the 30-second
version? Trying to think what the 30-second version would be. So anyway, I grew up shopping consignment. And so when I had children, it was just natural to shop consignment for them. And this event-based business was something kind of new on the market at the time. And it really worked. My co-founder and I had the very first event in my living room.
Wow.
I don't think I've told you this story.
I mean, I know this, but you haven't told me this.
Okay. Started it in my living room in 1997 and sold $2,000 worth of merchandise.
Yeah.
And we each made $150. It was the hardest $150 that I think I've ever made. And then we did it every 6 months after that.
Yeah.
And in 2003, we started franchising. And it that's a whole nother story, but that was our entry into franchising.
Yeah.
So I had, I guess, my jewelry making business in my teens.
Yeah.
In my 20s, I started the Just Between Friends concept. In my 30s, I started the franchise system. In my 40s, I started another business, which is called Coal Creek Farm Jinx. It's basically I have 15 acres where we live, and we opened it up to the public and to photographers to use. It's picturesque for Oklahoma.
I've seen the photos.
Yeah.
It's absolutely gorgeous.
And
woodlands and and all that. Yeah.
And then started this business in my 50s, the executive coaching business.
Yeah.
So feels like I'm really an entrepreneur now.
I mean, you're
not
a
an accident.
proper entrepreneur. Entrepreneur. You know, I'm English.
I need to say it like you.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it like me.
Yeah.
No, that is so cool. I mean, I wanted us to really talk about the exit today,
Yes.
because I think that's so interesting, and actually I don't think we talk about exits enough.
Right.
Within franchising and
Agreed.
business and so
Agreed.
on. So what got you thinking about exiting in the first place?
Yeah, this is really good. So my degree is elementary education.
Is that right?
Yeah. So
Wow.
I taught school before I started Just Between Friends.
Yeah.
And so elementary education doesn't teach you about business.
Yeah.
And so I learned things the hard way. You know, someone said, you got your MBA the hard way.
Yeah.
It was by doing it.
Yeah.
And so just, I think knowing I don't know everything, I just became a student.
Yeah.
I thought at some point when we started the franchise system, in my mind, I was like, who am I going to sell this to one day? And it wasn't like in a greedy sense of the word.
Yeah.
It was just, I know if I start something, it comes with responsibility. It comes with needing to make sure that these people who I'm selling these franchises to will have a future.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I wanted to make sure that I was thinking about that. I didn't do deep thinking about it when we started, quite frankly. I didn't know I needed to. But over the years, when I would come to the International Franchise Association, as information became more readily available online, I just became a student of what does it look like to exit.
Yeah.
So I would listen to podcasts. I would attend all-day workshops on mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah.
I would go to all of the events at IFA that had to do with exiting, because honestly, I did not know any of the terminology. I didn't know what EBITDA was. I didn't know any of that. So fast forward, private equity started coming into the franchising space in a significant way. I mean, they were, of course, there for the big brands all along, the huge brands.
Yeah.
But private equity started showing up a lot in the space, probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And for those of us who had a brand that was growing, you just got a lot of interest.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case before that.
Is that right?
Yeah. No. I mean, it was, or maybe they just weren't interested in me. Maybe I should say that. But,
I'm sure that's not the case.
Well, what happened is you started having people talk more and more and more about, you know, hey, I would be interested in talking to you, you know, and then they would ask you your numbers, and I'm like, what do they even care about? Because I didn't really even know. And so it just continued to become a student. Well, I have a mentor that told me, you always need to be ready to sell your business in 5 years.
Yeah.
And so that was on my mind. And what I took from that was, don't treat your business like your personal bank account.
Yeah.
Like, don't run your car through it. Don't run your childcare through it. Don't
Yeah.
run frivolous stuff
Yeah.
through it, which I think most small business owners, that's what we do,
Yeah.
because to save on taxes.
Yes.
And
Yeah, totally.
but so I have been doing that for a really long time, like not treating it like my personal bank account, like being super, I don't know, I felt like I was the fiduciary of this brand.
Yeah.
And so continued to do that. Then another piece of advice I got is always have 3 people in your back pocket that you could sell to at some point.
That's a nice piece of advice.
Yeah. And, you know, is that private equity?
Yeah.
Is that a competitor? Is that a multi-unit franchisee?
Yeah.
Is that a platform company? Is
Yeah.
that private equity? You know,
And for just to clarify for people that don't know, what is a platform company?
Platform company to me is a holding company
Yeah.
that gets together. They have shared services.
Yeah.
So they might share an attorney. They might share a chief marketing officer. They might share attorneys, CFOs, the high level people that you need to have in your company.
Yeah.
They have all those people, and then another way to think of it is bolting on brands.
Yeah.
So they pull brands that maybe have synergies in customer base.
Yeah.
And so the one that I was thinking of always since I started the brand was Winmark.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
okay.
so Winmark is a publicly traded company here in the U.S.
Yeah.
They have 5 brands, I think, in their portfolio.
Yeah.
Once Upon a Child, Plato's Closet, Music Go Round, Play It Again Sports, and a women's brand that I can never remember the name of.
Okay. But that makes total sense with your space, right?
Yeah. So, not to make this a super long story, but it is. It's over. It's over a really long time. So, I started seeking out. Does Winmark ever come to IFA? Well, they were not active.
Right.
But I went to an event in Minneapolis one summer with a law firm was putting on a conference, and I went to it, and I ended up at a round table, and we were going around making introductions, and this guy across from me, he said, I'm from Winmark. And I was like, you're from Winmark? And he was like, and who are you?
I'm the person that's about to accost you.
Yeah. I said, I'm Shannon with Just Between Friends. He said, oh, I've read your FDD. And I said, I've read your FDD. And from then on, any conference we were at, we tried to make time for each other. Because in my mind, I'm like, that would be a great company.
Yeah.
I think felt like,
did you change the systems you were using to sort of think, well, okay, this is the sort of things that Winmark use, and so on?
No.
And is that a good idea?
Maybe I should have. Maybe I should have. No, I think that was not my top priority to sell to Winmark.
Yeah.
My top priority was to make sure my franchisees were highly profitable.
Yeah.
They were satisfied, and we did that sometimes, and we didn't do that sometimes. Sometimes they were highly satisfied, and sometimes they weren't.
But that's just real life as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a lot of people out there that kind of give you a story, but actually I think that's very decent of you to say, because I think everyone goes through some really wonderful times. Everyone goes through crunchy change management and so on, and that's
crunchy change.
That's
awesome.
That's what we call it in England.
Yeah.
So, but the emotions then go up and down, and I think a good franchisor, certainly in my opinion, is just somebody that can be consistent throughout that whole process and say, well, I'm always going to do the right thing by you. And sometimes you're not going to like it, but I'm always going to do the right thing by you. And when you realize it,
that's where my heart was, right? And I think it's really tempting, Amrit, to think about yourself first.
Yeah.
Because that's human nature, you know, and you have to get into the practice of being, this isn't about me. This is about 150 people who are relying on me to be a good leader, me to make good decisions, me to bring in the right people to help elevate the brand. And it's not an easy task. It's absolutely not an easy task.
And so what advice would you give to somebody that is at the startup stage? And also somebody that is already thinking about resales, and so whether that's franchisee, franchisor, any entrepreneur that is either starting up and thinking, well, do I even think about an exit, and what do I need to think about? What's important? And somebody else that is thinking about it. I mean, what would be the advice that you'd give these people?
Ooh, that's really good. I think I don't feel like it needs to be priority, but I absolutely think it needs to have a space in your brain. To think about how and when you would like to exit. Not that you really, quite frankly, you don't really have a lot of control over it in the beginning. I mean, you probably don't even have a lot of control over it, in the end. But we like to think we do.
Hey, it's all about how you feel, right?
Yeah, I think my advice would be to think about it. So. Create your company in a way that it could be sold later. And what I mean by that is make sure you have systems and processes. Make sure there's a vision. You have core values, that you're thinking about all of those things, because when private equity or another buyer or someone like that comes in, I gave this advice this week. Someone told me, don't call your business your baby. because no one wants to buy your baby.
Yeah. That's pretty good advice.
Yes, yeah. And so create it in a way with the right people, the right management team that, you know, I think my goal, starting in 2016, when I realized, holy cow, we have this super flat structure to our business. It was me.
Yeah.
And then everyone else.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was trying to take a 3-week vacation with my husband.
Yeah.
He had been diagnosed with cancer, and I'm like, I want to honor him with my presence on a long vacation.
Yeah.
I don't want to go on vacation and have to work, which is every other vacation before then. And so I did it took probably 6 or 8 months, maybe even a year for us to get the vacation planned and for me to figure out a plan on how I could take 3 weeks off without needing to be on the phone or on email or, you know, helping franchisees.
And you implemented the EOS system at that point?
Not that. This is in 2016.
Okay.
I wish that would have been the case, but this was kind of the push I needed.
Right, okay.
Because again, super flat organizational structure with me and everyone else. So everyone reported to me. Nothing, I mean, it went very smooth. Like the website went down while I was in Italy.
Right. As it does.
I was like, of course.
Cool.
But I didn't even know about it.
Yeah.
I didn't even know about it. Yeah. So when I
They're
got
the sort of
back,
problems you want, right?
yeah, that was awesome. When I got back, I was like, oh, this worked.
Yeah.
Yay, this worked. And about 6 weeks later, things started falling apart.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. You know, when you're the single decision maker, people can't make a decision without your approval. Stuff stops.
Yeah.
And so I realized in 2016, okay, I have to clone myself.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have, you know, that might have been a little bit of founder syndrome before then, but I realized at that point, okay, the system is in a very precarious place with me being the sole decision maker.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, I have to elevate some people. I have to put some layers in my organizational structure. So started doing that as my budget would allow.
Yeah.
And then every year, so that was 2016. 2017, we implemented, sorry, I don't know why that's hard to say, an advisory board. And that's what I was talking to you about in Nashville. So, or you and everyone else in the room. So that was a great strategic move. I'm so thankful that that I realized I'm the lid on the business. I need some higher level thinkers in the company, but I don't have, you know, millions of dollars to pay these people, these high level people who would require, you know, $300,000, $400,000 for a salary. Yeah. I'm like, I can't afford that. The economics of our brand, all of that would not allow that. Yeah. So, but I could get them to help here and there. Yeah. And be advisors to have some continuity and consistency among the advice. And so they would get to know the brand. Anyway, that was a game changer, which is why I talk about it. Because I just have this amazing, just between friends, has this amazing board of people who should not have said yes to what I was doing, but
then they're the right people, right?
I mean, it's just an amazing. I have the who's who of people on my advisory board. So
fantastic.
Yeah. So when it came to sell, so that was 2017. 2018 we elevated some more people. 2019 elevated some more people. 2020. COVID. Yeah. And we are an event-based business where people gather.
But all 2 meters apart.
Oh my gosh, it was really bad. Event became a bad word. Yeah. So we changed it to retail because retail was operating. We're like, we have a retail sale happening. You know, if Nordstrom's is open, we can be open. So we kind of got through that. We were down 40% that year. Yeah. Really, really hard. Very, very thankful for the provision of the Lord that we were able to survive it because not everyone did. Yeah. And then 2021, we had a recovery year. The end of 2020, my husband got COVID, and he has pre-existing conditions. I don't know if I've ever told you this story.
We spoke about it in Vegas last year.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Again, very memorable for you.
So, yeah. So that was kind of a hard thing to go through.
Yeah.
He was in the hospital for 48 days, intubated twice, flatlined once. I was there watching it, thinking I'm about to be a widow.
Yeah.
And I think that was, we've been married 34 years. He survived.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lord. He's a walking, talking, living, breathing miracle. But that was kind of I think, it was something that really made me sit in reflection of, do I want to keep working this hard?
Yeah.
And do I have it in me? Also feeling like, I was gone for, not gone, I was not gone. I was present, but I was not in the day-to-day for about 6 months of him in the hospital and in his recovery time, his rehab time, learning to walk again, that type of thing. And so thankfully, you look back hindsight, 2019, I had elevated more people into leadership positions, and so they took over.
Yeah.
They did their job.
Yeah.
Franchisees were in a good place. They were in a good place. And so 2021 started doing the entrepreneurial operating system, Traction. Because we needed it. We needed focus. I had elevated those people, but we had a vision, but not a good one.
Yeah.
It was like we had core values, but they were okay.
Yeah.
We weren't talking about them. It's all the things that the EOS system teaches. I'm like, we've done a poor job.
Yeah.
And this is a way to do it. So we got an implementer. 2021, I appointed a president at the beginning of 2021, and we started on that journey. And of course, talking to private equity, talking to competitors, just thinking about, when am I going to exit? Not thinking it was anytime soon.
Yeah.
In my mind, I just pulled it out of thin air. I'm going to exit when I'm 57. I just came up with it. Who knows why? In summer of 2021, I had my largest multi-unit franchisee came to me and said, hey, if you're ever interested in selling the brand, I would be interested. And I said, well, that's interesting that you say that. She was one of the 3 people that I had in my back pocket.
Yeah.
Because she is a leader and influential in the brand, because she just was highly successful. She was showing the rest of the franchisees what was possible in the brand by her great execution, her leadership, knowing that they needed systems and processes. She was putting people in leadership positions within her franchises, multi-unit franchisee, and just doing things very well, executing very well. And so when she came to me, I was like, okay, if anyone can do this, she can do it.
Yeah. And in many ways, it's better, right?
You know what else she had done? She had been working with a coach. I have to throw that in there. So she had gone through Dave Ramsey's Entree Leadership. She's paying thousands of dollars a year to get leadership coaching, executive coaching.
Wow.
And so she was working with a different coach at that time with a group called Path for Growth.
Yeah.
And so she had someone to kind of speak into her, a coach on their team that had been through a transaction herself.
Yeah.
And was able to kind of be this advisor on the side.
Yeah.
Like, what does this look like? So it was not a quick thing.
Yeah.
It was 18 months.
The whole process.
The whole process. Yeah.
Spoke to you to when it happened.
And it was very, very untraditional.
Yeah.
I did not use an investment banker. We didn't go to market.
Right.
We didn't, and some people will look at that and think that's foolish, and maybe it was, but I love what has happened.
Because you're still involved, right?
In a minuscule way, I get to continue having conversations with the CEO, advising when she needs it. She doesn't need a lot of advice, but when she does, I'm there for her, helping with just little projects and stuff like that. And I get to be the brand ambassador. So
you've been able to kind of exit slowly as a result of that, just emotionally, I think, because it's quite, I think entrepreneurs, I mean, I've sold businesses, on a much smaller scale as a franchisee, as a, restaurant businesses and so on, but you're so involved in them. That actually selling them is actually quite emotionally. You think, oh God, now what?
Yeah, and it's another job.
Yeah,
it's like you have your day-to-day job, being CEO, being the leader of your company, and then you have to have this other job over here, which is selling the business. And it honestly, it takes you away from being focused on this other job. So it's a massive endeavor to sell your company.
No, yeah, totally.
I was really thankful we had put a president in place. Yeah. And I know the Lord's worked in that. We had put a president in place, and so I had capacity to even have conversations. It was
which is wonderful.
The availability of time to do all the stuff it needed, get the valuation, talk to the advisors, and because I had put this advisory board in, every single one of my advisory board members had M&A experience.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
And so when I would have a conversation with them, they would say, okay, think about this, think about this, think about this, and it was really helpful. That's why I didn't have to hire an investment banker. Of course, I had an attorney. And the gal that I was negotiating with had her attorney, but from a
So talking sort of brass tacks, franchisees, franchisors, open entrepreneurs. What sort of multiples can people expect when they're selling their businesses? Because even if it's not relevant to your own experience,
from
you've done a lot
franchisees. You're talking franchisors, right?
Z's and Zors,
okay.
Right? And what have you seen? What have you heard? I mean, it's really interesting because people don't talk about it, right?
Okay, so and I am not an advisor for M&A.
No.
I'm just going to tell you
legal disclaimer here.
What I've heard. Okay, which is who knows if it's correct. So I think when our franchisees are selling, and honestly, it depends on what it is, what industry you're in. So from a franchisee perspective, I've heard 1.5 to 3 from a franchisee perspective. Now, if you're this huge multi-unit thing, maybe you can get more. And it depends on, are you a technology company? Are you all of this? There's so many different. I hate even giving people advice, but there is a podcast that I listen to. It's called Cashing Out.
Oh, and you were on it.
I was on it. Yes, I was on it. Oh my gosh, it's so helpful.
It was brilliant.
It is so helpful because they talk about all that kind of stuff. So from a franchisor perspective, and I don't know if this is still current in the climate that we're in right now, but I think the smaller your EBITDA, the less of a multiple you'll get. Like singles.
Yes.
When you start having over $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, I think you can get higher multiples. 10 million or more, I think you can get in the 20s. And I'm saying I think. Right? It's, again, preface this by, I don't know. But I think that's a question that I wish there was some type of, report that got out. But when we went to do our valuation, when we went to figure out like what multiple to use for ourselves, what the company doing the valuation for me said is they said so many of the deals in franchising are private.
Yes, which is
they're private,
so true.
And ours is private as well. And so it doesn't hit the knowledge base of the people who are doing, and so.
And also, there's been a gear shift change now with lending being more expensive and so on, and so private equity, from my understanding, are that much more selective, but also pushing harder on the multiples being slightly lower. Which and that's a fluctuating, sort of beast, really, isn't it? But I find certainly in the UK with franchisees in our space, in the home care space, it tends to be anywhere between sort of 1.5 to 2 to up to 4
Okay.
times multiple.
Okay.
And I think the sweet spot is sort of 2.5 to 3
for franchisees.
For franchisees,
Yes,
if
yeah.
they are well run.
Well run. They're the person in charge is not needed all the
all
time.
Of that. Yeah. And actually there's some proper EBITDA
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
With Zours, I mean, we don't see that much, I haven't seen that much transaction volume.
Right.
But I think that, interestingly, in the States, I think, regardless, your Zours are at double the exit values.
Wow.
Because there's more private equity money
Yes,
that's
yeah.
floating. And
so maybe that's coming to an end.
Yeah, so I think, when we're talking exits, it's really interesting how it's different on the other side of the pond.
I didn't even know, but you want to move to the US?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Right? But I think also, interestingly, it's the private equity. If I look at the big brands that have sold, certainly in my space in the UK,
Right.
A lot of them have sold to American private
Right.
equity or their American masters
Yep.
and so on.
Yep.
So I think that's interesting. And whereas with the franchisees, one of the things that I often thought about was, and that whole piece of advice of knowing what you want to do on day one,
Right.
and thinking about whether the exits today or in 20 years.
Right.
My wife's a dentist and has a dental practice.
Yeah.
And 10 years ago, I sort of said to her, I was like, well, at some point,
What's your succession plan?
and she was like,
What
go
do you
away.
mean?
Right.
Quit.
I was like, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, you
I
really
will,
can't do that in franchising.
But yeah, and that's
I guess you can, but it's not. I wouldn't call that responsible.
Yeah. And I think it's really, it intrigues me when we're talking about franchisees as well, and saying, well, on day one, if we're talking about an exit, and whether that exit is when you're 57,
Yes.
or whether that exit is in 3 years, how does that look like? Who am I selling to?
Yes.
And what are the trigger points? Is there a
good.
revenue level that
Yes.
is easier? So when I was a franchisee, I thought, well, I sold in 2018.
Right.
And I thought, well, if I break $1 million, that I'll have a lot of buyers at that point.
Right.
And I'm not talking about then such big numbers that I'm, either getting undercut on my price,
Right.
or I'm not able to sort of sell easily.
Right.
And I
Right.
thought, well, actually, there's a lot of buyers there.
Right. There's only 2 people who could be interested in it. Yeah.
So it's all those things as well,
what a
right?
good problem to have. Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting, and I think I often talk to franchisees about, well, do you want to sell, or do you want to structure it? Because actually sometimes it's, I want to sell because I'm in so much pain.
Right.
But actually, if you just focus on the infrastructure and put, EOS in, for example, and so on, and you actually were able to run the business smoother, maybe that you wouldn't. But sometimes it's just a casher,
You know the Neighborly brand here
Yes,
in the States. So they have 33 different brands that they represent, and several years ago, I'm going to call it, 9 or 10 years ago, maybe even longer, I asked Mary Thompson, who's the
wonderful.
COO of Neighborly, I was like,
Yeah.
can we come and watch your training?
Yeah.
And it was
Wow.
me and my director of training, because I wanted to be able to see what they do at their training. Well, the very first thing they do, I think this is so smart, oh my gosh, was Dina Dwyer, so the founder's daughter, got up there, and she was CEO at the time. She's since now chair of the board, I think. Anyway, she got up in front of the 50 new franchisees in the room, and for 2 hours, she talked to them about how are they going to exit.
Oh.
They had just bought their franchise. This was their first time with the Neighborly, on the campus of Neighborly, and meeting all the people. And the very first talk they heard is, you just bought your franchise, how are you going to exit?
Magic.
And it totally was. And so they had them go through a process of figuring out, what are your exit goals? When are you going to exit? What did you buy the franchise for?
Yeah.
Do you want this revenue to be something that your kids go to college? What are you going to do with this money? And just ask them all these questions. It was so smart. And then, as the franchises continue to grow, the franchise business coaches, they look at that this was the vision that you set.
Yeah.
You want to run this for 10 years. You want to run this for 20 years. So where do you have to be at the 5-year mark? And are we on track to get to that? So I think the strategic nature in which they did that blew my mind.
I mean, that is great.
Yeah.
And also my franchisee training just changed.
Yes. Yeah, I know.
That's wonderful. So, Shannon, if you could give us 2 actionable things. So I usually ask for 1, but
okay.
but you're too much fun to just ask for 1. So one thing
think.
Yeah, quickly. I'll have this long question here for you. So I'd like to speak to kind of entrepreneurs at 2 different stages.
Yeah.
You know, and the first entrepreneur that is thinking about an exit. You know,
Yes.
what is the one actionable thing they can do, and the second entrepreneur that is just living the dream, doing life as it is. You know, what can they do to build their business and really go to the next level?
Okay. Let me answer the second question first. So, I'm speaking from experience here, because with an elementary education degree, you come into business ownership accidentally, or maybe you did it on purpose, but you can't know everything. You just can't.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so I started, not strategically, just as who I am as a person, surrounding myself with smart people.
Great.
From the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's asking people who you see as a leader in something, if you and they've been there, they've done that,
Yeah.
and you want to be where they are, you want to step in their you want to walk in their footsteps, you want to know what they know, spending time with them, asking for mentorship.
Yeah.
Just asking. And not everyone's going to have capacity to be a mentor.
Yeah.
But surrounding yourself with smart people, being in rooms where the people are that you want to be in your future self.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wonderful. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, what was the other question?
So the other question was just talking about somebody thinking about exiting. What is the actionable thing that they can be doing?
Yeah.
Whether that's with their business and restructuring
Yeah.
it, or whether that's something else.
Totally from my experience, I felt like the only way that I was actually going to have an exit is if I made myself where I wasn't the person who had to do all the decision making. And that turned out to be true. So it was really strategically thinking about who can step into these positions.
Yeah.
And that's how, when I coach people right now, I have them, part of what we do is understand our strengths. So where are the areas that you enjoy, that's so easy for you? You know, those are the things that you need to continue doing.
Yeah.
What are the things that just you would rather clean the toilet than do them?
Yeah.
But they're on your job description, right? What are those things? Those things are the things you delegate, because those things that you hate, or really dislike, or I can do it, I know how to do it, but I have to use my accommodating skills. It just takes me longer. It takes that person 30 minutes to do it. It takes me 5 hours to do it. Delegate those things first.
Amazing.
And continue to do that. So as your budget allows, the very first thing we hired was someone to do our books.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't want to learn how to do QuickBooks. Can I learn how to do QuickBooks? Yes, I can learn how to do it. So I think really being strategic every year about thinking, what are the things that I can delegate this year to someone where it's something general for me, but it's their expertise.
I love that.
And elevating, so they call it delegate and elevate.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, you delegate, you elevate everyone when you do that, because you're bringing in experts in these areas.
Wonderful.
So,
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And if somebody wants to get hold of you, how do they do that?
So I'm Shannon, and my business is Shine Executive Coaching.
Yep.
So Google Shine Executive Coaching. I'm on LinkedIn, Shannon Wilburn on LinkedIn. So probably that way.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You've been an absolute star. Thank you.
Thank you. You interview very well. Ask good questions.
Well, you'll receive those questions very well.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for tuning into another episode of Walking with Walfinch. I'm so excited to get all of these out there and really looking forward to the next one.